The hardest part about being vegan is living in a non-vegan world. We're constantly bombarded with advertisement, lies, and misinformation. When times get tough, most people can lean on their friends and family, but for us, that's where a lot of this frustration comes from. Well-meaning meat eaters often inadvertently hurt our feelings, and that's what this video is about. I'm not talking about trolls who are trying to provoke us. I'm talking about Aunt Susie accidentally making us feel like shit. Just a quick disclaimer, if you're watching this and you've said some of this stuff to me, don't worry, I literally said almost all of these to my vegan friends before I went vegan. Probably about half the time I meet people and they find out I'm vegan, they say, I could never go vegan. And it's really annoying. I understand they're not trying to be assholes, but they still are. When you say you could never do something that someone else is doing, you're not only insulting that thing, but you're insulting that person. Imagine if someone said this about anything else when they first met someone, like, whoa, you play pickleball? I could never play pickleball. It would be really weird, and it's weird to say to vegans too. You're trying to psychologically distance yourself from our lifestyle so you don't have to reckon with the immorality of what you're doing. The fact is that you could easily be vegan, you just don't want to. Just be honest, you don't want to go vegan. You could, but you don't want to. When meat eaters say this to us, it makes us feel judged, like we're insane for not wanting to pay people to torture baby animals. A huge reason meat eaters don't like vegans is because we make them feel judged, and it's a shitty feeling, so please don't do it to us either. Before I went vegan, I said this all the time. I genuinely did not think that I could go vegan. If you're watching this right now and you think that vegans are right but feel like you lack the ability to do it, I urge you to give it a shot because it's probably a lot easier than you think. On our honeymoon last year, my husband and I went to a remote island in the Caribbean, and while there, we made friends with our neighbors, Philip and Gloria. They wanted to have us over for dinner, so we had to tell them we were vegan, and they made some chickpeas with curry. It was actually really good. But after dinner, Philip decided he wanted to take us to his brother's house. As soon as we got there, Philip said to his brother, "These are our new American friends. They're vegan. They don't eat no animals or anything like that." This made it hard to connect with Philip because he had a cow that he was planning to slaughter, and he was a goat hunter, which is really common on the island. The next 30 minutes were awkward. First impressions are incredibly important. They affect the way people see you for years. It's much harder to come back from a bad first impression than to make a great first impression in the first place. That's honestly my entire social strategy. I just make a good first impression and then coast for years. Since most people hate vegans, it's not something I like to bring up right away. There's that old joke, how do you know someone's vegan? Don't worry, they'll tell you. But it's a lot more likely that they'll be outed by one of their friends first. I'm not afraid to bring up veganism or let people know I'm vegan, but I want them to like me first. Some vegans take issue with the idea that we should try to be likable, and I think during activism that's valid. But when it comes to your social circle, there is power in being a well-liked and well-respected person who also happens to be vegan. How would that interaction with Philip's brother have been different if he hadn't known we were vegan right off the bat? Maybe we could have bonded with him, mentioned that we were vegan later, and then left him with a positive impression of vegans. I know it's unfair that people do this, but they base their entire impression of veganism on one person that they meet. Your impression on others matters whether you like it or not. I never took veganism seriously until someone I respected gave a solid case for animal rights. And part of the reason I hated vegetarians was because I knew a couple vegetarians who really sucked. Humans are social animals, and we look to others around us to determine what's popular. If you can be a cool, fun, thoughtful vegan who's unapologetic about animal rights, your veganism will have a greater positive effect in your social circle. In the book Change, the author concludes that change starts at a local level, and your greatest influence will be with people in your immediate social circle. In the past, I've spoken up against advocating to your friends and family, and I think that that's mostly a good idea, but there's also a lot of power in setting a good example. Take people to vegan restaurants, cook them delicious food, and answer questions when it comes up. When it comes to influencing others, you have more power than you realize. Once I was having a decent discussion with a friend about animal rights, where we talked about animal sentience, factory farming, and all this other stuff, and in the middle of it, he got a little uncomfortable, and then he asked me about honey, since apparently vegans are split on that. Meat eaters love to deflect from the fact that they're paying for animals to be tortured on factory farms by asking about honey, oysters, backyard hens, and secondhand leather. It's a way to take accountability off of themselves and to try to distract you from the issue at hand: unnecessary, intentional animal exploitation. Honey isn't vegan, by the way. If someone is genuinely asking, then I'm happy to answer their questions, but it's not usually coming from a place of genuine curiosity. It's like they're trying to poke holes in the vegan position. I've had people bring up the Inuit desert islands and ask if I would eat Jeff Bezos. Jeffrey Bezos. One reason this bugs me is because vegans have differing views on these subjects. I mean, not all of them, like we all want to eat Jeff Bezos. Come on, Jeffrey, you can do it. But some vegans think secondhand leather is okay, and some think it's bad, and when your friend asks you about this stuff, it's almost like they're making you the spokesperson of veganism, when in fact we're just one in millions. Another common loophole people try to find is the conditions under which it would be okay to exploit animals. Like if a cow had a heart attack and died, would it be okay to eat that cow because you're not actually increasing animal suffering and the cow's already dead, so you don't want the body to go to waste? The point that all these people are missing is that we don't see animals as resources. How would you feel if I asked if you were going to eat your dog's corpse after he'd been hit by a car? You probably don't want to think about it, and we don't want to think about the fact that most people see animals' bodies as acceptable targets for violence and resources. If you do have questions about these topics, please spare your vegan friends and go to r/debateavegan instead. Shortly after I went vegan, I made dinner for some of my non-vegan friends. Actually, this was before I learned how to cook, so I didn't make dinner. I bought dinner from a vegan restaurant, and it was really good. We ate together, it was fun, but then during dinner, one of my friends said, "This doesn't taste vegan." I understand that in her head, this was a compliment. She was trying to show appreciation for the food and say that it was just as good as anything non-vegan. The reason vegans take this as an insult is because it actually is an insult. If you say, "This food doesn't taste vegan," then you're implying that most vegan food tastes like shit. "I know you typically eat grass and flavorless sludge, but this tastes like something worthy of my palate." There are plenty of vegan foods that non-vegans eat every day. They wouldn't say, "Wow, this bread doesn't taste vegan." So why say it when your friend has made you vegan food? If you don't already know that vegan food tastes good, then you haven't tried enough of it. If you don't have at least a few vegan meals you can cook, then you need to improve your cooking. Relying on dead animals for every meal belies a lack of creativity in the kitchen. Get some spices, watch some vegan recipe videos, and you'll be cooking amazing plant-based food in no time. "Wow, this chicken doesn't taste like rotting, tortured bird corpse." Sometimes people tell me that they're 50% vegan or 80% vegan, or they hardly ever eat meat. And I feel like they're missing the bigger point. Veganism isn't about your diet being mostly plant-based. It's about having an ethical stance against animal exploitation. We take animal rights seriously. We see it as a social justice movement that needs significant and urgent action. This reducitarian mindset has nothing to do with animal rights. You can't be 99% vegan in the same way that you can't be 99% pro-women's rights. If you look down on women at all, you're sexist. And if you exploit animals unnecessarily at all, you're speciesist. Another reason this one bugs me is because it's like they're expecting some sort of congratulations. Like I'll say, "Oh my god, I'm so happy that you only pay for animals to be tortured once a day instead of 3 times a day." Why would I congratulate you for torturing animals? You know I oppose all forms of animal exploitation, so why would you tell me that you're not only intentionally participating in it, but you think you're doing a good job? Also, if you really don't eat that much meat, then why don't you stop? It would be so easy for you, and it would prevent animals from being tortured and slaughtered. So the fact that you haven't done it when you easily could makes me respect you even less. Dang, this water is so good, and it's so cold. If you're like me, then you probably know how important it is to stay hydrated. But it's hard sometimes, especially when your water gets gross and warm. This mug from Pro Animal Future keeps it cold for hours. We're doing a spring fundraiser right now, so if you want to become a monthly donor, you will get a free mug and some free stickers. link in the description. Once my sister's boyfriend was telling me a story about how he had to rush to a gas station to get this fried chicken before it closed so that his cousin could try the best fried chicken in the world. And I was just sitting there thinking, does he not know who he's talking to, or is he just really drunk? When people talk about eating dead animals, it puts us in an awkward position. We can either sit there silently or ask you not to talk about it, which is a tough conversation to have. There are plenty of things we could talk about: the weather, Taylor Swift's new album, philosophy, Bridgerton. We don't have to talk about dead animals. I understand it's normal to talk about food and to tell your friends if you went to a new restaurant, but please be mindful of your vegan friends. We have to see evidence of animal torture all day, every day. I turn on YouTube and see an ad for Domino's. I walk down my street and see a restaurant advertising dead pigs. I take my dog to the park and I see chicken wing bones. It sucks. It's hard enough to be a vegan in this world, but when your family and friends remind you of their participation in animal exploitation, it cuts even deeper. We know that strangers eat animals, and we don't care as much because they may not even know what veganism is. But when it comes to our family and friends, we have talked to them about veganism. They know the harm their lifestyle causes toward animals, and they're choosing to ignore it and to ignore us. When someone's ignoring what you spend your life trying to fight against, it just makes you feel like shit. I know my friends and family watch my videos, and I know that they still pay for animals to be tortured, and honestly, it just really fucking sucks. I can usually forget about all this stuff when we're hanging out, but when they talk about eating animals in front of me, I can't ignore it. Please just let us forget what you do to animals as much as we can. Thanks for watching. Hit that like button if you enjoyed this. Let me know how people trigger you in the comments, and I will see you next Friday.